So the Bruins miss out on Mike Sullivan. Joel Quenneville is now about to be announced as the Anaheim Ducks coach. I wouldn't have minded them taking that risk for the second winningest coach in the history of the league. And now they need to pivot. But it seems like the Bruins have a top target. At least that's what the reports are coming out. Reports coming from a couple of different sources, but first from Jimmy Murphy, that Rick Tocchet, ex-Canucks coach and ex-Bruins player, is the Bruins' top target to become their next head coach. And I love it. I'm not going to lie. Big Rick Tocchet fan. The way he turned around that Canucks team and got them to be, one of the top seeds the last 2 seasons before this year. They didn't make the playoffs this year. We'll get to that in a second. But they won the Pacific Division in 2024. They had one of the best rosters in the league. And then a bunch of drama came. And if you're one of those people that says, how could a coach can't hold a locker room when there's this much drama, then you're one of those kind of people. I'm not. The Elias Pettersson thing and JT Miller, bullying thing, it was bizarre. Brock Besser doesn't get a new contract that he likes, so ends up being, a big piece of the drama throughout all this. Quinn Hughes, now there's questions of if he even wants to play there. I don't put that on the coach necessarily. And there's problems in Vancouver with players, right? I mean, it's one of the richest places in North America, one of the most expensive places to live. You get taxed to hell playing there and getting paid there. They don't have a practice facility. They're the only team in the league that doesn't have a practice facility. You're going to get taxed to shit in Massachusetts too. But I think Rick Tocchet can be the perfect guy for this job. Because lest we forget, when he took over Vancouver in 22-23, they had a lot of drama already, right? There was all kinds of rumblings, and they weren't getting enough out of their young core. And Rick Tocchet comes in. He leads them to the playoffs in 22-23 when it didn't look like they were going to make it. And then they're one of the best teams in the NHL the next year. 21-22, and then 22-23 and 23-24, they were a home ice playoff team. Both years. He led them to, those 2 seasons, they were one of the best teams in the NHL. And you look at the Bruins right now, there's some discontent there, right? There's some drama there. They just traded their captain a few months ago and had a fire sale. They're trying to figure out who can even play in the NHL on this roster and who cannot. Rick Tocchet took a team that was similar, albeit a bit of a younger core and more of a core with Vancouver in 21-22, and turned them into a team that was fulfilling their potential. Why wouldn't Rick Tocchet want to do that with the Boston Bruins? Now, the elephant in the room is played a long time with the Flyers. He won 3 Stanley Cups, 2 as an assistant coach and 1 as a player with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And yeah, both of those jobs are open as well. But it seems like finally that the Bruins are sending out the feelers and are actually making Rick Tocchet a priority. They didn't make Mike Sullivan a priority. They did say through a leak that some of their coaching candidates are still coaching in the postseason. I don't know if that means Toronto assistant Mark Savard, former Bruin, but Rick Tocchet makes a ton of sense, man. He has quelled locker room drama before, and to do it a second time is a really tough thing for any coach to do. Then you start having to turn your eyes towards the players and the general manager when there's contract drama. I think Rick Tocchet would slot in here and fit like a glove for the Bruins. And RG Media put it out there. If the Bruins really think they can turn this around fast, Tocchet is their guy, and I think he'd be interested. Got that from an NHL source, whatever that means. But the fact that Tocchet is actually interested is obviously a big step. This has been a weird saga with him and the Canucks. According to Jim Rutherford, he thought that Tocchet was coming back. He also thought Brock Besser was coming back. He thinks Quinn Hughes is coming back, and so far he's 0 for 2. Let's see if he goes 0 for 3. It's just a weird situation in Vancouver. I know it's not the lightest of situations in Boston right now, but Rick Tocchet, I think checks a lot of the boxes that Mike Sullivan did. Right, a familiarity with the organization, obviously played for the Bruins at one point. A guy with head coaching experience, a couple different stops. This he's been coaching as an assistant or a head coach for 22 years now, 23 years. I think 2002 was his first job right after he retired. So the guy has plenty of coaching experience. They had a heck of an offensive system with Vancouver when Pettersson was really going, and Besser and JT Miller was a 100-point guy. Like they were firing on all cylinders in the 22, 23, 23, 24 seasons. And, he's got Stanley Cup winning experience. Mike Sullivan did it, won 2 Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh as a head coach. Rick Tocchet won 2 Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh as his right-hand man and won 1 as a player and was traded for Mark Recchi. How about that for another Bruins little parallel there. But the thing I like the most about Rick Tocchet is I kind of just mentioned it in there. He's got a good offensive philosophy. His teams have been great skating teams with a ton of skill and a good forecheck. And yet they're not totally built in Rick Tocchet's image, right? Like Rick was a bruiser. Fun fact, he's the Flyers' all-time leader in Gordie Howe hat tricks, to show you what kind of player he is. In the Flyers' history to lead them in Gordie Howe hat tricks, that's pretty impressive. So a lot like Cam Neely in that sense, but he doesn't build his team like a bunch of Cam Neelys. He's not looking for big and slow. He's looking for aggressive and physical, but guys who can skate and score, much like you see in, Dallas or Florida, where those guys, or Vegas, where those guys are competing for Stanley Cups, or the way this Pittsburgh teams did when they won Stanley Cups. So to me, Rick Tocchet to Boston, checkmate, man. Let's do it. Would I have rather had Mike Sullivan? Maybe. I think they're probably about the same. Would I have liked the intrigue of Joel Quenneville, even though it was going to be terrible PR to go with it? I see a guy who's one of the best coaches in the history of the sport, who has done it at a high level somewhat recently. Like, it's not like he was winning cups, 25 years ago. He's winning them 10 years ago. And who's hungry for his one last shot at being an NHL head coach. Yeah, I like that a lot. But you said no to it. And your pickings are pretty slim here if it's not Rick Tocchet. Because then you're looking at Tortorella, Gerard Gallant. You said you wanted a head coach, and Mark Savard doesn't fit that. And I also don't love the optics of pulling an assistant from Toronto. Just my 2 cents on it. But Rick Tocchet, I think, is your guy. And it's about time we finally start to get some clarity on who this could be. Who do you want to be the next Bruins coach? And is Rick Tocchet a fit for you? Maybe I'm bypassing too much of the dramatic stuff with Vancouver. I just can't put all that on the head coach. The same way I didn't really do it for the Bruins with Jim Montgomery's situation, which was weird. But anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, and it helps us on the path towards 4,000 subscribers. We thank you so much for making it a part of your daily routine. I'm your host, Cam Stuart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week, live on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Check out the other videos on the channel, and we will see you tomorrow on another ditty of the Cam Show.